Hello traders, today we have a very interesting video for you. And this video is going to be about the effect of the conflict between Russia and Ukraine on the forex market. And this is not just going to be about the forex market alone, but it is good that we talk about it on the forex market as we are seeing now. So please, I want you to take your time, because this video is going to be a bit long, but don't rush it, because it's going to help you. If you watch this video to the end, it will help you understand some future occurrences, okay? We are forex traders and we deal with currencies. When nations are affected, their currencies are also affected. So it is very good and important that you understand certain things so that when you see similar things happening, you will come to appreciate and understand what to do. So that is what this video is going to be about. My name is Kofi, your admin for Leading Forex YouTube channel. Today's video is going to be about what is happening in Ukraine and then in Russia, or what is between Ukraine and Russia, which the whole world is talking about. I'm going to take my time to give you a summary, not in detail, but a summary of what you need to know as forex traders. Okay, now let me share this screen with you, because I am going to be discussing some things that when you hear them, you will quickly understand why I am mentioning those things. Is that okay? So first of all, I would like to share this with you. So we are discussing the effect of Russia-Ukraine conflict on the forex market. Now, there are some key words. You will hear me repeating them. And when you hear them, I want you to understand what they mean. So quickly, let me go straight to these terms. Good. The very first term or words you might hear me use will be Russia. Or you will hear me use a word like the USSR, which is Union of Soviet Socialist Republics. Or you may also hear me mentioning or saying Soviet Union. So when you hear these words, know that they are in a group, okay? So when I'm talking about Russia or the USSR or the Soviet Union, this is one group of it. Is that okay? Now, you may also hear me using words like United States of America or USA, or you hear me mentioning NATO, which also means North Atlantic Treaty Organization. And also you will hear me mentioning words like the non-aligned movement, which is NAM, non-aligned movement, NAM. So you will hear me in my presentation using these words interchangeably. When you hear me mentioning them, I'm sure you understand these groupings. So the first group of words is Russia, USSR, or Soviet Union. The second group of words will be United States or USA or the NATO. And then finally, another group will be NAM, which is the non-aligned movement. Now, let's go straight into the presentation so that I am sure you will quickly understand and appreciate what we want to share with you today. Now, listen carefully. I want to begin this presentation from after World War II, or the Second World War. After the Second World War, the world came to say, or the world agreed that we have two major superpowers in the world. And these main two superpowers in the world are the USA and then Russia. These two nations emerged after the Second World War as the main giants, the main masters of the game, if I'll put it. So after the world agreed to this, that okay, we have two main giants in the world, which is the Russia and then the USA. The world decided something to be done. And what did the world say? The world said that in order for peace to prevail across the whole world, they will want to divide the world into two. And listen carefully. They will want to divide the world into two because we have two main giants, which is the US and then Russia. So the world decided that since we have these two main giants, all the other countries, apart from these two main giants, any other country that will want to join any of the two giants is free to do so. So it's either you want to be part of America or you want to be part of Russia, because that was after World War II. So after this World War II, the decision to either join America or join Russia is what is termed as Cold War. So you might hear that after World War II, there was what we call Cold War. The Cold War is either for you to join America or join Russia. So what happened? We had a lot of countries joining Russia, and we also had a lot of countries joining US. Now, the reason they said these two countries were the giant is because they were all in possession. The US and Russia were in possession of ammunitions, missiles, and what have you when it comes to war gadgets or anything to do with war. They had the missiles. These two countries had nuclear powers or nuclear weapons that could destroy the world. These two countries, Russia and US, had these two weapons that could easily destroy the world. So if these two giants had these weapons and none other country had it, then it is possible and it is true to say that they are the main players in the world. So Russia here, US here. So if the US had wanted to destroy the world, it's just a matter of pressing a button and then the whole world is gone. If the Russia want to destroy the world, it's just a matter of pressing the button and then the world is gone. So if Russia had this and then the US also had this, then it is possible to say that they are the main giants. So if they are the main giants, the rest of the countries who are not giants could either join Russia or join the United States. That was the Cold War. So countries started joining. And so the Russia as a country formed a group of countries that had come to join them. They had a name for a group of countries that had come to their side. And that group is what is called the USSR. So we had 15 countries in the USSR. And then the United States also formed a group called NATO, which happens to be countries that had come to join them as superpowers. So we had NATO on one side, which is at the side of the US, and then we had the USSR, which is at the side of Russia. Now, so the USSR or the Soviet Union or Russia had 15 countries in all, forming the Soviet Union or the USSR. And then we had, currently as we speak, we have about 30 countries, 30 countries joining United States to form the NATO. Now, what these two groups simply supposed to do is that if I join Russia, what it means is that if an enemy wants to attack me, it means you are attacking Russia or you are attacking all members of Soviet Union. And then also, if I join NATO and an enemy wants to attack me, then it simply means that you want to attack all countries that are under NATO. Do you understand the argument here? So NATO was supposed to protect its members in terms of building those nations to become strong in terms of ammunition, security, and what have you. Anything it will take those countries under NATO to develop, it was the sole responsibility of NATO to do that for those countries. The same as USSR. Anything it will take for all members of USSR, which is also known as Soviet Union, to develop. It is the responsibility of Russia to also make sure, as a leader, to make sure that those countries under Soviet Union or the USSR develop. So when it comes to ammunition, military, whatsoever, economically, everything, USSR have to make sure they make that happen for all its members. So what happened? If this was what happened, there was the third part of the issue, which I'll not go into detail. Now, there were other countries who also said that, okay, what if I don't want to join NATO, which is under US, or I don't want to join USSR or Soviet Union? What happens to me? I don't want to be part of these two. Is there any consideration? So the world sat down and said, okay, these people also have a point. Maybe they do not want to be part of NATO or Russia, which is also Soviet Union. So what do we do to such people or those countries? So from that perspective, we had another movement or another group that emerged, and that is the non-alliance movement or the non-aligned movement. So the non-aligned movement were states or nations that didn't want to take side. They didn't want to align themselves to Soviet Union, and also didn't want to align themselves to the NATO or United States. They just wanted to be in the middle. So as a result of that, we had other countries also coming to be independent. They didn't want to be part of Russia or the US. So those countries that formed their own group, not to be part of Russia or US, is what we have or known as the non-aligned movement. So they are not aligned to the superpowers. They don't want to be part of the superpowers. They want to be on their own. So when a decision comes, what will happen is that when a decision comes or there's an issue, the non-aligned states will only speak to the facts, okay? They will only speak to the issue that is at hand. They will not take side by saying maybe Russia is right or US is right, or by saying USSR is right or NATO is right. So they will only speak on the issue and say, hey, we don't want to be part of here or there. So let this issue that is happening die naturally for us to be in peace. And when that happens, the non-aligned nations could either receive support from Russia and then also US at the same time, because they don't belong to anyone. So they could get support from Russia or Soviet Union and could also get support from what we call NATO or the US. This is the advantage to the non-aligned movement. So countries like Ghana, as we speak, we are part of the non-aligned movement. Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, Sergeant for Dr. Kwame Nkrumah decided that, okay, we don't want to be part of Russia or part of US. We want to be on our own. So we want to be under the non-aligned movement. So as we speak, the advantage of this is that the United States, NATO, or the United States decided to build a Akosombo Dam, which is Ghana's main source of electricity in Ghana. And then the Russia or the Soviet Union also said, okay, they also want to help Ghana by giving us Bui Dam. So we have two main dams in Ghana that provide us electricity. Bui Dam from Soviet Union or Russia, and then the Akosombo Dam from the United States or NATO. Do you understand the analogy? So this is the benefit the non-aligned movement could enjoy. Do you get it? Now, let's go to the slides and let me show you something very interesting quickly. Now, taking you straight back to the slides. Now, here we are on the slides. Now, when you look at the slides as we speak, we have Russia, we have the United States, and then the non-aligned movement. Now you understand. Good. Now, I want us to look at some notes for the purpose of this communication. When it comes to the Soviet Union or the USSR, we had 50 members or 15 nations that came together as USSR. So we have the Russia itself, Ukraine, Georgia, Belarus, Belarusia, Uzbekistan, Armenia, Azerbaijan, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Moldova, Turkmenistan, Tajikistan, Latvia, Lithuania, and then Estonia. These are countries that formed the Soviet Union or the USSR, 15 member states. Now, when it comes to NATO, we have 30 member states as we speak right now. Albania, Belgium, Bulgaria, Canada, Croatia, Czech Republic, Denmark, Estonia, France, Germany, Greece, Hungary, Iceland, Italy, Latvia, Lithuania. Now, you watch here carefully. You see that I have given Latvia a red color. I'll come to explain why. Latvia is in red, okay? So Lithuania, Luxembourg, Montenegro, Netherlands, North Macedonia, Norway, Poland, Portugal, Romania, Slovakia, Slovenia, Spain, Turkey, United Kingdom, and then the United States itself. So these nations are also the NATO nations or NATO members. So in all, NATO has 30. Now, what of the non-aligned movement? The non-aligned movement, as we speak, has 120 members. So when you look at the USSR members and then the NATO members, you realize that there are a lot of countries that we did not mention. For instance, Ghana, you didn't hear of Ghana. You didn't hear of Nigeria. You didn't hear of South Africa. You didn't hear of all the nations, Egypt and the rest. I'm sure you agree with me that you've not heard of those countries. A lot of them hasn't been mentioned. So we had about 120 member states that said they don't want to be part of Russia or America. So they are in a group known as non-aligned movement. Now, this non-aligned movement is the second largest group of states after United Nations, because United Nations has 133 states or countries or sovereign states coming together to form United Nations. So when you take the United Nations as a bigger group of states or nations, the second largest is the non-aligned movement, which has about 120 members. Is that okay? The issue is getting interesting. Just wait for a while. Now, I'll come back to this slide, but let me quickly continue from here so that you understand this. Now, let's continue with our discussion. If you love what we are sharing with you, first of all, like our Facebook page, like our YouTube channel. I don't know where you are watching, but I'm sure you are watching this on YouTube. So watch and then subscribe to our YouTube channel. Like this video so that once you like this video, it will help YouTube algorithm to suggest this video to more people. Is that okay? So like this video for us. Is that okay? Thank you. Now, let's continue. Something happened. So the world came to be at peace because everyone had joined a certain group. So the world became peaceful and everything started moving normal. So we've been in that normal state up to a time, somewhere 1990s. During the 1990s, one group became weak financially or in terms of resources. Because if a nation comes to join either party A or B or C, it is the responsibility of that group to help that nation to grow. So one group became very weak, and that group is what is called the Soviet Union or the USSR or Russia. Russia became financially weak. And so Russia decided to do something. Russia decided that, okay, now that financially, economically, and other reasons, we are a bit weak in supporting our members, we will want to decide that we should bring the group to an end. We should close the group. So Russia decided that, okay, we want to do away with our group. We don't want to exist again. But before that group will be dissolved as Soviet Union, we will want other groups, listen carefully, we will want other groups to agree with us that when we dissolve our group as Soviet Union or USSR, no group will come and take our members to join their group. Do you understand? This was the plight of Russia. Russia said that, okay, our group, which is Soviet Union, we are weak financially and other stuff. So we want to dissolve our group. But we want a contract between all the other groups to come to an understanding that when we dissolve our group, you will not come for our members. You will not come and lure our members to join your group. Although we have dissolved our group, but don't come and have anything to do with our group because we are still friends. Although we do not give support to ourselves anymore, but we are still friends. So let's agree. And truly, NATO and the other groups all agreed and said, okay, fine. Now, there are some schools of thought that is saying that that agreement was a verbal agreement. That is what some schools of thought are saying. I don't want to go into detail because I do not have that document. So I want to leave it there as it is. But there was agreement. Whether it was verbal or written, there was agreement. So NATO agreed and said, okay, fine. You can dissolve your group as Soviet Union. We will not come closer to your members or your nations. That is it. So they agreed. And then in 1990, this group dissolved. And then in 1991, some of these states that were under Soviet Union started having their own independence, being on their own. So a country like Ukraine gained its independence in 1991 from Soviet Union. It wasn't only Ukraine, but all other countries, the 50 member countries, gained their independence to do their own thing on their own, because there's not going to be any support from Russia in any way. Although you are friends, so maybe you can dialogue and whatsoever, but you are now on your own to finance everything of your own. So they agreed. We are still friends, although we are no more a group. So the argument is left there. So what happened? There are some schools of thought that said that after the Soviet Union was dissolved, NATO started doing what we call, how do I put it? I'm looking for a good word to use for the sake of the highly intellectual people that will be watching this video. People say that, okay, NATO, headed by America, started poking its nose into these other states that were dissolved from Soviet Union. And to a point that almost 13, listen carefully, 13, you know, Soviet Union by then had 15 states. And as we speak, about 13 of those states have been influenced by NATO. And currently, as we speak, they are part of what? NATO. So Russia has been quietly watching. Out of 15 members, NATO, you agreed with us that, okay, let's dissolve our group, but you won't come for our members. But now you have indirectly influenced these people, and they have all come to join you now. The reason being that European Union is part of NATO. So once you join the European Union, you become an automatic member of NATO. That is what some schools of thought are saying. I have no point to argue whether it is true or not. But as we speak, about 13 of the 15 member states of Soviet Union have joined NATO. And that is why if I go back to the screenshot, which I show you, or the notes, as I'm seeing here, let's look at the notes here. You will see that I gave Latvia a red ink. The reason I gave Latvia a red ink is that this is Latvia under NATO. If I go back to USSR, or if I go back to Soviet Union, you will still see Latvia under Soviet Union. Here is Latvia. So you see, Latvia, which was under Soviet Union, has been lured by the United States. That is what some schools of thought are saying, that they've been lured. Almost all the states have been lured to join European Union, and that has led them to become automatic members of what? NATO. So Latvia is a clear example here, as you can all see. If I'm to give you a clear example, Latvia is here under Soviet Union, which is no more in existence. And when you go to NATO, which is still in existence, you will see Latvia as being part of them. So let's continue. This is getting interesting, isn't it? Good. So if this is the case, to make this long story short, let's look at some facts and statistics for your own understanding. Now, 13 states under Soviet Union have gone to join European Union, which has made them automatic members to NATO. Isn't it? So we're left with just 2 states. That is left now, if we are to mention Soviet Union. And those 2 states are Russia and Ukraine. Russia and Ukraine. They are the only 2 left. Now, if they are the only 2 left, what is happening now? Why is it, why are we hearing Russia-Ukraine invasion, conflict, and the rest? Why? This is it. Now, the point here is that now Ukraine, that gained independence on its own in 1991, has also decided that they want to go and join European Union. And when they join European Union, as we speak, it means that automatically they are becoming members of NATO. So if that is the case, why is Russia trying to invade them? After all, 13 states have left you to join European Union, and which they are now members of NATO. Russia, you didn't complain. You didn't say anything. Why is Ukraine trying to go and join European Union and you are striking? Why? What is the reason behind this? Now, there are a lot of reasons people are saying. I cannot be able to talk about all of them, but these are a few things some schools of thought are suggesting, that they are the reasons why Russia is striking. Now, some schools of thought are saying that Ukraine shares border with Russia. And when you join NATO, when Ukraine should join NATO, remember I said that when you join a group, the group is supposed to protect you in security-wise, build your security, build your economy, help you develop ammunitions and the rest. So if Ukraine should join European Union and then becomes member of NATO, United States of America can bring their ammunitions, their weapons, their whatsoever, and then come and station it at the borders of Ukraine. And we all know that Russia shares border with Ukraine. And some schools of thought are saying that when that happens, Russia will feel threatened. or they will feel their security is being breached. So based on that, Russia is trying to protect its sovereignty. So they don't want Ukraine to go and join NATO or European Union. If they do, Russia's security will be breached. And this is what some schools of thought are saying, that is the reason why Russia is invading Ukraine right now, so that they will prevent them from joining NATO. Now, that is one school of thought. There's also another school of thought that says that when you go to Ukraine right now, there are Russian-speaking people that constitute about almost about 40%, not exactly 40%, but almost about 40% of the population of Ukraine who are Russians and then Russian-speaking people. So when Ukraine is allowed to go and join European Union and then becomes automatic members of NATO, what it means is that part of Russia has agreed to be part of NATO indirectly, because Ukraine has about 37 to almost about 40% of Russians and the Russian-speaking people in Ukraine. So when the whole Ukraine is moved to European Union and then now under NATO, there will be influence. And once that happens, it means Russia has been sold out. Half of Russia is now part of Ukraine, and now going to be part of European Union and then NATO. So Russia feels like, no, part of our people are being sold out to a group they don't want to belong to. So if part of our people in Ukraine are going to be sold out to a people they don't want to belong to, then we need to protect our people. So to protect our people, we need to strike and invade invade Ukraine. Bring Ukraine back under us. When we bring them under us, since we made them to be free and they don't want to be free, let's bring them under us. Once we bring them back under us, they have nowhere to go. So that our people who are in Ukraine, who are Russians, will be safe. This is another school of thought. I don't know whether they are also right or wrong, but I am just mentioning some of the reasons why people believe what is happening is happening. Now, maybe I may not be able to say everything involving some schools of thought about why Russia is invading Ukraine as we speak. But let me take you back and say a few things. In everything, there are examples. Do you agree? In everything in this world, there are examples. So what are some of the examples that we can look at? Example number one is that back in those days, when the Cold War time began, there was a country known as Cuba. Cuba is just about 90 kilometers. Those who are really talking about Cuba are saying that I don't know there. So I'm just basing on the facts and things that are out there for us to read. They are of the view that Cuba and US is just separated by a sea, the sea that separates these two countries. So Cuba, in time past, during the Cold War, decided that they wanted to join Russia. They wanted to be part of Soviet Union. And then the United States stood up and said, hey, Cuba, you are our neighbors. Why do you want to rather go and join Russia, which is the Soviet Union, and not us, NATO? So whilst US was in its own state of deliberation, they heard that the Russians have started moving their ammunition to the territories of Cuba to protect Cuba, because Cuba is now coming to be part of them. And then the Americans sounded a warning and said, hey, Russia, be careful. You dare not bring your ammunition to Cuba, which is just a stone throw to us. Once you bring your ammunition to the territory of Cuba, it means that you are also indirectly going to invade part of the United States, or you are going to poke your nose into our issues. So it's either you stop and send back your ammunition, or we will send our jet fighters and then destroy all those ammunition that you are carrying to Cuba. So Russia decided to withdraw their ammunition, and then they took them back to Russia. Now, Cuba is a free state. Cuba is now on their own because there's no Soviet Union. And people believe that Cuba as a nation, which is very close to the United States, is still being punished by the United States up to date because they didn't come to join them because they are neighbors, but decided to go and join Russia. So Cuba, up to date, some schools of thought believe that Cuba is still being punished by the United States because of that decision. Now, people are saying that if that is what happened in the past, and then Russians withdrew their support and took back their ammunition, then if Russia is also saying Ukraine shouldn't come and join NATO or join European Union, then NATO, led by US, should also understand and take out their influence from Ukraine. This is what some people are saying. There's also another school of thought that is saying that, okay, Russia shares borders with United States at Alaska. I don't know there, but this is what the theory out there is also saying. So people are of the view that, oh, if it's just a matter of coming to share borders with NATO because Ukraine is now going to be part of NATO, and because of that, NATO might bring its ammunition to station them at the borders of Russia, then what of Alaska? Because Russia shares borders with Alaska, which is United States. So what is the difference? So some schools of thought are also saying this. I don't know there, so I don't want to even go far. Now, I'm sure you are beginning to understand why this conflict of Russia-Ukraine is happening. Now, good. I wouldn't make this so long. Now you know. And then you understand why Russia is invading Ukraine. As to whether Russia should stop what they are doing and allow Ukraine to go, or Ukraine should rather stop what they are doing by trying to go and join NATO and therefore posing threats to Russia should be stopped, or whatsoever, I don't know. I don't know and I cannot tell. So as it stands now, there are some things we all need to be very careful, especially countries that are watching with keen interest. And I want to talk about that. It's very, very, very important. Now, despite NATO is kind of throwing sanctions at Russia. For instance, United States has given sanctions on Russia. The UK has given sanctions on Russia and the rest. And even if you remember, let me take you a bit back. There are a lot of things I should talk about, but I'm skipping them. If you remember, in 2020 or 2019, which of that? I don't have the specifics, but UK, which was part of Europe or European Union, UK, which was part of European Union. What I want you to know is that there are some states that are in Europe, but they are not part of European Union. And Russia is one of them. Ukraine is also one of them. Ukraine and Russia are all in Europe, but they are not part of the European Union because the European Union is part of NATO. So UK, which was part of the European Union, decided that they wanted to go out of European Union. Although they are still under NATO, but they don't want to be part of the European Union again. I don't know if you remember. And that is what led to what we call the Brexit deal. The Brexit deal issue to the forest traders who were in forest trading by then will be able to tell you what happened to the forest market with regards to Euro and GBP. These currencies became very, very weak because UK is trying to pull itself out of what? European Union, which led to the Brexit deal negotiations and the rest. I'm sure you haven't forgotten that. That is why I'm saying that this information I'm giving to you will not just help you today, but it will help you in future occurrences. Is that okay? Good. Now, that aside, I wanted to say another thing, but let me leave that. There's no time. This video is becoming too long. So let me say something here. If that is the case, now, some countries are getting their eyes on the issue that is happening right now. The reason is that Russia is being sanctioned by some of these NATO countries. Other countries are also watching with keen interest. The reason being that if things are not settled well, what is happening in Russia and Ukraine right now, if things are not settled well, it is possible that it may lead to a third world war. This is what some people are saying. And we are going to share those facts as to why those people are saying that. Now, the reason those people are saying that is a possibility is because Russia has friendship with other countries. And those friends are watching with keen interest. For example, Russia has friendship with China. They also have friendship, kind of bond, with North Korea, and then also Japan and some other countries. And currently, as we speak, if you are talking about the top 10 countries with proper ammunition, army, and all that it takes to start a war, US is number 1, followed by Russia, number 2, China, number 3, Japan, North Korea is within the top 10. UK is also within the top 10 countries. So if Russia is having that friendship with China, with North Korea, with Japan, and some other countries, these countries are not giving sanctions to Russia. It's only the NATO countries that are giving sanctions to Russia. Again, the non-aligned movement as a group is also not saying anything. They are not giving any sanctions because they have already said that they want to be in the middle. So this issue that is happening, the non-aligned movement countries are only sending notes of peace. That is what they are doing at the moment. They are only saying, oh, we beg, Russia, Ukraine, please, can we settle this matter and then let everything be peaceful? We are already living in a country or a nation or a world of peace. So you guys should patch your differences and let us continue to enjoy our peace. That is what these non-aligned movements are doing. That is what they are doing. Now, the reason they are saying that this thing could spark a war if things are not properly handled is because Russia, as we say, is only trying to stop Ukraine from doing what they are doing. As to whatever reason, I don't know. They know. Although there are schools of thought about the reasons they might be doing that. But I cannot say those reasons are factual or they are the main things or reasons why Russia is doing the invasion. I cannot say. They are just schools of thought. But if America, after giving its sanctions, including NATO countries like France, UK giving their sanctions, if they don't take care, if NATO is also being very careful because Ukraine hasn't come to join them yet. They are only trying to join them. They haven't joined them. I beg your pardon, they haven't joined them. They are only trying to join. They haven't joined. So NATO cannot act as it stands. NATO cannot strike to say that, okay, we want to go and protect Ukraine because they are part of us. Ukraine is not yet part of NATO. So US cannot go and fight. UK cannot fight. No member of NATO can fight as it stands now. They can only be backing and trying to see if they can do anything to make sure that Ukraine becomes part of European Union, which maybe will make them members of what? NATO. But US cannot strike because what are you striking? You cannot strike Russia because Russia is only fighting Ukraine. They are not fighting NATO because Ukraine is not part of NATO. So US and then the UK and the France and other countries that are members of what? NATO can only be giving Russia sanctions. That is what they can be doing to make sure that Russia will be squeezed. When Russia is squeezed to a point that maybe they can no more handle, then maybe they will say, okay, fine, no problem. Let Ukraine go and do whatever they want to do. That is what these NATO countries can do. All right, that is what they can do. Apart from that, they cannot do anything. They will only be squeezing Russia, making them feel some pains, making them become weak to a point that they was okay, all right, no problem. You, Ukraine, go and do whatever you want to do. Because now UK has given sanctions, US has given sanctions, and a lot of countries which are part of NATO. But mind you, China hasn't given Russia any sanction. China buy wheat from Russia. They are still buying wheat as we speak. Other countries that are friends with Russia are still doing business with them smoothly. But Russia, which is also a leading producer of crude oil in the world, currently as we speak, these NATO countries are refusing to buy crude oil from Russia because they feel that they are trampling upon the sovereignty of Russia. Sorry, Ukraine. They are trampling upon the sovereignty of Ukraine. So why are you disturbing someone's peace and you want us to do business with you to get more money? So if we do business with you to get more money, it means you are going to use that more money to press someone. So we don't want to do business with you. That is what NATO is doing now. But NATO cannot act or fight Russia. They can only use these sanctions to press Russia. But mind you, other countries are not giving sanctions. They are still doing transactions and business with Russia. So that is what people are of the view that if this thing is not carefully taken care of, Russia and its allies or Russia and its friends, in case US should strike or NATO should strike Russia right now, all the friends of Russia will come to their aid. And when that happens, imagine China coming to join Russia. Imagine North Korea, that country, I tell you, they are very dangerous. Imagine North Korea coming to join Russia. Imagine other countries that time will not permit me to mention should also come to join Russia that they want to fight and support or help them. This will lead to what is called a third world war. So everybody is saying that, hey, let's solve this issue carefully. But some countries are also watching carefully, watching what will be the outcome. So this is what is actually happening in the world right now with regards to Russia and Ukraine. Now, how does this affect our forex market? That is where we want to finish this video. Now, let's go to the slides and finish this. How does this chaos affect the currency market? Now, listen carefully. Whenever there is insecurity in the world, okay? Whenever there is insecurity in the world, we always see businesses and then monies being moved into what is called safe haven. Some countries, their currencies is perceived to be a hiding place when there is insecurity in the world. And so if you remember, when the issue of COVID broke out, okay? When the issue of COVID broke out in the world, people thought that maybe COVID was a biochemical weapon that was released in the world. And so security, the security of the world was in a way being threatened. So businesses started moving their monies. Businessmen, institutions that were money-making institutions started moving their monies into security places, places where they could hide their assets, hide their resources until they see a clear picture. Then they can bring back their monies and continue their businesses. So we have safe haven currencies like Swiss franc, the US dollar, Japanese yen. And then when it comes to commodities, we have some safe havens like gold. And then when it comes to the current safe haven that I love so much, that we have, being part of the safe haven currencies, is Bitcoin. Now, I told you that I'll be doing a playlist on Bitcoin. I don't know if you remember, but if you still remember, don't rush. I am going to be doing a playlist on Bitcoin. And when I do, you will come to love Bitcoin. And if you don't take care, you may be moving part of your investments gradually into Bitcoin, because Bitcoin is one of the safe havens. Gold is also another safe haven. Swiss franc, which is chef, is a safe haven currency. Japanese yen is a safe haven currency. And then also the US dollar is a safe haven currency. Now, time will not permit me to explain what I mean by safe haven, but or the details of why these currencies and these assets are safe haven. So let me just make this clear. If anything of this should happen in the near future, the very first thing you should ask yourself is, this insecurity that is hovering around the world, is it as a result of politics, or maybe something else, or maybe it's as a result of maybe emergency? If it is as a result of politics, then it will be good to consider safe havens like Bitcoin, gold, and then Swiss franc. The reason is that we have some nations that are free nations from politics. They are not influenced. There are some things, some commodities and currencies that are not influenced by politics. And a country like Sweden, or Swiss franc, with its currency, is devoid of politics. This currency known as Swiss franc is not manipulated by politics. Politics cannot move it. And so it is believed that most of the world politicians, they hide their monies in Sweden. But let me give you this screenshot to know that it is not only Sweden that has that opportunity. There are other countries that also have that safe haven opportunities. And those currencies are called the economically free countries. And when it comes to the economically free countries, we have an institution known as the Heritage Foundation, and they are in partnership with Wall Street Journal. And every year they publish what we call Annual Index of Economic Freedom. And they derive their inspiration from one of the world's best economists, known as Adam Smith. He has a book, or he wrote a book titled The Wealth of Nations. The Wealth of Nations. And he tried to explain what makes one country's wealth superior than another country. So as a result of this inspiration from Adam Smith's book, The Wealth of Nations, the Heritage Foundation and the Wall Street Journal has been able to give us, every year they come our way with countries that are economically very strong and cannot be manipulated by politics or other happenings. And the 2021 index, as we speak right now, says that Singapore is the #1 in terms of a country that is devoid of manipulations. Singapore's economy is devoid of manipulations, be it politics, be it whatsoever. They are so independent that any of these happenings cannot shake Singapore financially or economically. So 2021 says Singapore is #1, followed by New Zealand, followed by Australia, followed by Switzerland, and then Ireland. Switzerland has been enjoying this tally by being on top, or has been sitting on top. And it is very, very surprising that Singapore and New Zealand and Australia are emerging and becoming very strong nowadays. So these are the 5 countries that nations hide their assets into their economies because they believe that when there is an issue and it's a security threat, it will not have a major effect on these countries because they are not manipulated by politics. Now, let me say this here. If that is the case, the very first question you should ask yourself is, the current happenings between Russia and Ukraine, is it politics? And the answer is yes. If it is politics and NATO is political, Russia, Ukraine, and other countries who are involved in this are also political states, then it will not be appropriate for investors to hide their money in US because NATO is led by US. So if US and Russia are currently having issues because Ukraine is in the middle, then US will not be a safe haven at the moment. Do you understand the analogy? If that is also true, then it means the Japanese yen will also not be a safe haven at the moment. Why? Because Japan is in friendship with Russia. So if Russia and US should have an issue, it means Japan is automatically involved. And so it will not be appropriate for us to see, or investors will not see Japan as a safe haven. The same as China, because China is also in friendship with Russia. So the Japanese yen at this point, and then the United States dollar at this moment, will not be the appropriate safe havens for investors to consider because there is politics at play here. So if these two are taken out, how many are left? We have Bitcoin. We also have gold. And so when you go to the MT4 and you check gold right now, gold is on the rise. Investors are moving their money into buying gold. The same way when you check Bitcoin, Bitcoin is on the rise because investors are moving their monies into Bitcoin as a safe haven because of what is happening between Russia and Ukraine. They are not certain whether this thing will lead to war or not. They have to see the clear picture before they will go back and take their monies from these investments or from these safe havens. Now, if that is the case, what of Russia? Russia is the leading supplier of what? Crude oil. Now, crude oil is very scarce because Russia is not able to supply to UK and then the NATO countries because they have sanctioned Russia. If that becomes the case, then it means crude oil will become scarce. There's no demand, so supply will be limited. That is why I told you that when it comes to commodity trading, it is based on supply and demand, which is very different from currencies. So since Russia has been sanctioned by NATO, these NATO countries are not going to buy crude oil from Russia. So crude oil will become scarce. And that is why if you see the tally of crude oil is skyrocketing. Crude oil is on the rise in terms of its price because one of the world leading producers is not supplying. It's not supplying America. It's not supplying Europe. It's not supplying NATO countries. So crude oil is also on the rise. So if that is the case, if you're a currency trader, what should you do? Let me take you to the final slide, and then we end this video. The final slide here. All I want to say is that if you're a Forex trader, okay, I think this is the final slide. All right. So, okay, subscribe to the channel. All right. Subscribe to the channel. Let me do a bit of a recap. If you're a Forex trader at this moment, what should you do? That is the question. Okay. If you are a Forex trader at this moment, what is the right thing to do? The right thing to do is that you may have to stay off euro. The euro is a currency in Europe. And all this is happening in Europe. So the euro is going to become weak. Again, the Russian currency, that is the ruble, is also going to become weak because economically, people are not buying from you. You have crude oil and wheat and other things. Yes, China is buying wheat and other countries are buying, but other countries like US and the rest are also not buying. So the currency is also going to be weak. Gold is going to be on the rise. And as it stands now, it's on its way. It's been rising. The reason is because it is a safe haven. People are moving their money into that asset now, buying of gold. People are buying Bitcoin because they feel it is the safest haven now to go into. Some people too are moving their money into Switzerland, Singapore, and other countries, Australia and New Zealand. The reason is because if you know, New Zealand and Australia are also leading producers of gold. These two countries are also leading producers of gold. So if this happens, gold is going to appreciate in value. The currency of New Zealand and Australia are also going to appreciate in value because people are moving their monies there. Do you understand? People are not moving their money into yen and then US dollar because of the political tone of this Russia-Ukraine conflict. So if you're a Forex trader, you need to be very cautious if you are trading the euro. Because at the moment, euro is on the downside because of what is happening in Europe. Again, crude oil is on the rise. Gold is on the rise. Bitcoin is on the rise because of all this. I have given you all you're supposed to know. Australian dollar is on the rise. New Zealand dollar is on the rise because they are also economically free countries. They are top 3, Singapore, New Zealand, Australia. And then CHF, which is the Swiss franc. All these currencies are on high. And euro is suffering. Euro at the moment is suffering. And also GBP at the moment is also suffering. GBP is suffering because Great British pound or the Great Britain pound, or what do I put it? The Great British pound, yes, that is the right way to go. What is the GBP? Is involved in this NATO issue. And they are also under Europe. So their currency is also falling. So GBP is also gradually going down. So be careful if you are trading based on this information. In the future, if there's any insecurity in the world, as an investor, you need to ask yourself whether this insecurity is as a result of politics or is as a result of whatsoever. You need to be able to find out. And once you know the results of what is happening, for instance, when COVID came, COVID brought a lot of insecurity to the nation, but it wasn't as a result of politics. Do you get the understanding? COVID whatsoever wasn't political, but this one is politics. So you need to understand the happenings in this world to be able to trade and to know what to do. But I will definitely come your way with that playlist on Bitcoin, and you will love Bitcoin. You will love it because I love Bitcoin, but I don't trade Bitcoin the way you trade it. People trade Bitcoin like Forex. If you trade Bitcoin like Forex, then you are doing yourself a great danger. Bitcoin and currencies are not the same. All right? So you cannot be trading Bitcoin as if you are trading currencies. You will be doing yourself a great harm. There's a difference between portfolio and value. Okay? Bitcoin could be losing portfolio, but not in value. But currencies do not have portfolio. When they are losing value. And this is very different. We will be explaining all this to you on this channel. I told you this video is going to be long. Forgive me. I'm ending here. I'll see you in another tutorial very, very soon. We'll be going back to continue from our moving averages. Until then, my name is Kofi. Stay here and more is yet to come.